So this is the Acumatica enhancements in 2019 R1. We're going to go through the features. We have a variety of people presenting today. A lot of our friends in the pre-sales team, as well as myself, will be your hosts and hostesses. Each person's going to take a little different section. They're going to go through several of the new features that you saw highlighted in the release notes. So we'll get started with the platform and usability features.
Let's do a couple of slides first. Hello, everybody. This is Jessica Gadboys, and I'm going to start off today by taking you through the platform and usability features. If you were with us at Summit, some of these will be familiar to you. What I thought I'd do is just take you through a couple of slides first and tee up what I'm going to present, and then I'll take you through a couple of demos in the new R1 site. So if you were with us at Summit, one of the things that we talked about is branding for new sites and for branches. So we can do this in two ways. We can either do branding for an entire Acumatica instance, or we can brand by individual branches or companies. So the use case there was all about listening to our customers and getting feedback from the customers, saying that they were having some issues with data entry, making some errors as far as, working in multiple companies and branches and not having the ability to differentiate between them. So I've already changed my mind. Why don't I just take into the software, and instead of doing all of my slides at once, we'll start right over here with the branding. So now we're looking at Acumatica, and to set up a color change for your entire website, you would use the Site Preferences screen to do so. So this would be overriding the color on all of your companies and branches and setting up a color change for this entire instance. Now, if you wanted to do it just for a company or a branch, that would be done on the branches form. But here on my site preferences, I have my primary color, and I can go in and start to modify it that way. So let's just, for the purposes of the demo, I'll move it over to something like red, and I'll say OK here. And what I'm going to see as soon as I hit save is my Acumatica instance is going to change to that red that I just selected a moment ago. So that would be the way to do it for your entire site. Now, like I mentioned, we have a lot of customers that were more interested in doing this between companies and between branches. So just keep that in mind. If you would like to use this in an installation or in a demo, you can modify on the branches form the color that you would like to use, or on the company's form the color that you would like to use. And you can just simply hit override your site preferences. So that would be how to change the colors there. I will show you just a quick example while I'm here of this is my products wholesale branch that I typically work in, and that would be my Acumatica blue, but just an example of showing how I can have multiple colors at once. When I flip over now to a different branch, you can see even though my primary site color is blue, my branch is set up to be more of that maroon instance, or color, I should say. Okay. So that's a little bit about color themes and branding. Again, keep in mind the use case there was to really help people with data entry, make sure that they're not making mistakes, and make sure that, some of those important transactions are not hitting the wrong company or the wrong branch. So that's number one. I'm going to move on to number two now, and this is a feature that we added, keeping in mind people that are doing some longer running processes within Acumatica. So again, this is one that we talked about at Summit, but the progress bar is going to give you visibility into those processes that are running and any errors that might come up along the way, or any processed records that do get the green light, as we say, and you'll get visibility into all of those directly on that progress bar pop-up. Now, this does work on all processing screens in Acumatica. So any of the screens that you're familiar with that fall under processes, this will work there. Why don't I just use a process that I'm sure everyone on the, at least for pre-sales resources, has used at some point with the demo data. It's just rebuilding this full text entity for the search. So I'm going to say process all, and that's when you start to see the new feature pop up, which is this brand new processing bar. It's showing me all of the records that I have processed so far and what I have remaining. The nice part is I can go out and leave that screen if I need to, and I can go perform some other work, and that process will remain running in the background. So really helping out from an efficiency standpoint. I can also, like I mentioned, toggle on these icons to see the records that have been affected and let me get that visibility into if I've had any issues or warnings, and I can go ahead and address that very quickly and easily. The last part of that is there is a system monitor screen that allows you to take a look at multiple processes that you might have running at once. Since that process just finished, naturally I'm not going to see any running processes right now, but it's nice from a resource usage perspective as well if you'd like to get an understanding of what's going on in the system and who your active users are. So that's the brand new progress bar, helping out people, really system admins, people that are performing implementations and some of those longer running processes within Acumatica. Moving right along here, we're going to keep this on a slide demo basis because we want to get through everything pretty quickly for you all today, and there's a lot to get through. But side panels. You've seen side panels before. We actually released these in 2018 R2 was the first time we saw them. And then in 2019, we really just enhanced them a lot. We got great feedback on the side panels, so we wanted to make them even better for you. So let me just take you through a couple of those quick enhancements that we did with the side panel. Back in Acumatica, I'm just going to switch back to my wholesale branch there. And for the side panel, I have one set up for my sales orders. And if you remember, I'm not going to walk through creating a side panel for you. We did that on our last release. So if you wanted to do that, you could go up to customization and start to create these panels for use in your environments. But the goal here, just to refresh your memory, is to give you visibility into whatever you've selected in the grid to pull up the associated navigation path that you've added in your side panel. So here when I'm looking at sales orders, I've opted to also see my customer record in my side panel, as well as my customer view dashboard. So you can even pull up a dashboard in these side panels. Again, that's just a refresher from 2018 R2. Now, what we've done in 2019 R1 is the first part of this is the performance around the speed has just been greatly enhanced. There was, about a second or two delay, and you would see the loading icon when you were flipping between records. Now you can see it's happening instantly, so really no delay whatsoever as far as performance. The next part of this is we just are really we have been focusing on allowing our users to make the screen or really view the screen in any way that is helpful for them or allows them to see data in a way that makes sense for the process or the activity that they are trying to work on. So you might want to actually blow this side panel all the way up. And that's one of the new things that we added in 2019 is you can actually take the minimize and maximize window and blow up that side panel to be as big or as small as you would like it to. If you remember, these menu items can be minimized as well. So just really seeing the modern use of Acumatica and how you can start to make these screens your own and use that minimize and maximize to get more views of the data, or as I said at Summit, a screen estate. And then the other piece of that is once you've actually determined the size that you'd like, there's also been a button added in the top right to expand or collapse that panel all the way out. So maybe I'm looking at, the customer view dashboard in my side panel, and I'm taking a look at my sales orders in my grid, but perhaps I need to quickly take a look at the rest of that dashboard in one view. I can quickly pop open the side panel using the expand and collapse, and now I'm getting a lot more data, but I can close that up to get back to my grid very quickly. All right, that's side panel enhancements. Like I said about that, we got some really just phenomenal feedback about the side panels, so we're continuing to make those even better for you. And I hope you can see through that short demo how we've done so in 2019 R1. Moving right along, the next feature, and probably one of my favorites from the new release, this one has gotten fantastic feedback as well. A lot of people are very, very excited about this, but we have added conditional highlighting into our generic inquiries. So this allows you to define certain conditions that need to stand out in a more color-specific way. So to give you some visual aids and start to analyze that data even more quickly than we had allowed you to do in the past with things like filters. So this is the grid down at the bottom, or kind of the key that shows how we can format this. Over on the left, I'll use this example here, but bad, good, and neutral are what is going to give you red, green, and yellow, like we see in this example on the screenshot. So why don't we take a generic inquiry and add an example of conditional highlighting using one of those features right there, or one of those keys right there. So here on my customer view dashboard, we have a widget for open opportunities. And I'm going to drill into those open opportunities, and I actually want all of my records here. And on my opportunity records now, or on my generic inquiry for my opportunities, I see what is standing out so far in yellow and in red. I see anything that does not have an owner is being highlighted in yellow. And I also see that anything that does not have a date that is later than today, so anything that is earlier than today's date, is going to stand out in red, because to us that means it is a late opportunity. So we need to go and take some action to make sure that it gets closed. Now the other example that I'll add for you today is we'll use the status column here. And what we'll do is we'll take any opportunities that have a status of 1, and we'll make those appear in green. So to do that, I will go up to my customization, and I will edit this generic inquiry. And to utilize the conditional highlighting, the tab that you'll want to work in is this results grid tab. And under the results grid tab, you see that a few of those formulas for the highlighting have been added. And what we want to do is add one in for our status. So I'm going to grab this status row, and we want the style column. So the style column is brand new. That's a piece that has been added with this conditional highlighting feature. And I can select the pencil icon to start to include the parameters that I would like for that conditional highlighting. So what we're going to say is we want that all of the status of 1 to appear in green. So keep that in mind. That's the use case we're going to use. So we're going to say if, and then we want the opportunity status. So I'll go over to my fields, and I'll just narrow this down. So if my opportunity status, and then we're going to say equals 1. So we wanted equals 1 as our example. Then we will have the true part is going to be good. So if you remember, the good is green in our conditional highlighting example here. So anything that we mark as good will show up with a green highlight. So I'm going to select good. And then if not, we just want it to show up as default. Just don't highlight anything. So we'll pick default here. So let's validate. And we have passed the validation. So if all goes according to plan now, we should see any opportunities with a status of 1 highlighted in green. And now we do. So really easy to do, guys. I mean, in some systems, this would be something that A, is not even possible, but B, if you wanted to do it, would really take a lot of digging behind the scenes and getting down and dirty into some of that code. So I hope that you can see the value here. We know that we've already gotten really great feedback, not only from partners, but especially from customers that are working in this data, throughout the course of the day. So conditional highlighting, one of our favorites from 2019 R1, and there's a quick example for you. And there are just two more quick pieces that I have in my section. One actually doesn't require a demo, so just wanted to talk about it with you. Again, you might have seen this at Summit if you were at the keynotes. But we have officially released artificial intelligence with our universal search in Acumatica. So what this is doing is it's looking at the results that are entered. It's looking at this natural language search that has been entered, and it's going to start to analyze the results and get smarter and give you better results based on how you interact with that page. So if you've typed in, how to create a sales order, and the system pushes back some articles to you. If you notice, this actually will look a little bit different than what you're used to, because it's actually going to push back a consumable list of steps for you to take in order to meet whatever you have typed into that universal search. So a lot of things are changing here. But then what's going to happen is Acumatica will recognize how long you spent on that page. Were you clicking on the links? Were you interacting with the results? And over time, it will get more intelligent and constantly be giving you better search results based on that query that was typed in. So we're really excited about this. The first time that we've seen AI and machine learning in a shipping instance of Acumatica. So very, very excited about the new search results in Acumatica 2019 R1. Now, for my last act here, I am going to take you through another feature that we added to 2019 R1 that focuses on security. Again, security is something that's going to affect absolutely everybody. If you're a partner running Acumatica internally, Acumatica is running Acumatica internally, our customers. So having multi-factor authentication in a shipping instance of Acumatica is a very big deal for us. I'm going to just quickly share my mobile app so I can show you how this works. So you should be able to see my instance of Acumatica again. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to log in here to an instance that is set up to use multi-factor authentication. And I'm going to say sign in. And you'll see that it's saying that it wants me to approve the request that was sent to my mobile device. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. If you would like to do push notifications like I just did in that example, here's my phone being reflected. It's a picture that I actually took, one of my favorite places in the world in Puerto Rico. But here is the push notification that I just received when I logged in. So it wants me to now confirm that I am in fact the person that is trying to log into that website, and I can use that push notification that was just sent to me, or I could even choose to use another authentication method. There's several ways to do this, like email and SMS. So I can also say, send me a text message with a code if you would prefer to enter the data that way. So I can also say, send an SMS to my mobile device. And now just one more time, I'll take you over to the mobile, and you can see from the Twilio account here that I have a code that I can add. So I'll just say 817-100, and I'll type that in, and now it will allow me to log in with that multi-factor authentication. Push notifications are really nice for this too, because you wouldn't even actually have to type a code in. So I just wanted to show you that both examples are there.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Amazing demo. And hi, everyone. My name is Sergey. I'm a solution architect. Joined this webinar straight away from Singapore. So I want to show you some demonstrations and share some new features related to the platform and system enhancements. Okay, so let me start with the first part, and I will speak about the pivot tables. So I think you know that Acumatica is improving the reporting tools a lot from the release to release, and the pivot tables and generic inquiries is one of the core things of that. So we have added quite some enhancements in the pivot tables. Let me actually show a few of them to you, so to give the kind of idea what can you do now with new Acumatica 2019 R1. And the first place where I start, it's actually the standard generic inquiry, invoiced items, where you can find all the records as usual. And you remember from the previous versions that the tabs on top they are actually the filters, right? But now with this new release, we also have a new tab here where you can display the pivot table just in place, right? So you don't need to switch the context anymore, so you don't need to navigate between screens. You can have a pivot table right within your generic inquiry. And this gives you actually quite some additionals. So for example, here we have a edit pivot function, a gear icon where you can click and immediately modify your pivot. So I can put the customer class here, or customer is already here, so inventory item here, for example, and then I can put a state, for example, to filters. So you see, I just use a drag and drop. I don't even need to save. I just uncheck, click my icon again, and you see that the pivot is already modified. Sorry, I think I put the inventory item twice, so let me put in the column something different. So for example, countries, yeah, like this will be better, right? So, and we have now the modified the customer classes and the countries. One more thing I want to highlight here, we actually added the ability to collapse columns and rows now. So now you have a full control on the pivot tables, what you want to see, what you don't. Plus filtering conditions allows you to really easily filter the data, again, without switching of any context anywhere. So everything in one place. Okay, that's kind of pivots. There are quite some additional enhancements that you can check. For example, I like now we differentiate the null value from the zero value in the pivot. So it's a completely different thing that it brings a better reporting tools to you. Okay, so the next thing I want to share with you, it's a dashboard content. So when I do the implementation projects, I always have it like this. You do the full implementation first, then in the end you try to find what customer wants to see on the dashboards, and then you do the dashboards, right? Sometimes you even do this after the go live, and that brings some troubles because the customers not always can feel the difference and the power of Acumatica from the reporting and visualization perspective from the day one as a part of the implementation. So now we have introduced the demo, actually dashboard set as a customization project that will be included in the release, where you can take a power of all our dashboards that are included in the sales demo data and install it to any of your customer instances on Acumatica 2019 R1. You actually can include your own dashboards as well and share it through the customization projects. That's very easy to do because all the dashboard related articles and items are now included here. So you see the generic inquiries, dashboard, sitemap nodes, shared filters, and wikis. So if I want to include the new one, I just pop up the panel, save the dashboard, and it includes everything I need. So it includes the dashboards itself, it includes the sitemap nodes and everything that is related. So now I think you will have a better and faster implementations. Okay, so moving to the next part and the business events. So I like this a lot. We introduced the business events a year ago, I think, and we improved it through the past releases. But in this one, in 2019 R1, we have some really cool features that optimize the performance and usability and brings it on the next level. Let me give you the several examples that you can use on a daily basis. So you know, you can set up notifications through the emails, through the mobile push notifications. You can set up it also through, so you can also integrate import scenarios to the business events. But yeah, again, if you have a notifications and if you want to monitor your how your company is going, and you can want to monitor the different processes. With the standard notifications, you will have a lot of spam, right? I mean, if you want to monitor a lot of things, you will have a lot of emails and notifications comes from the different places. So the new order has been created, new invoice released, another quotations generated, and so on and so on. So if you have multiple orders and quotation a day, it actually affects you, right? So how to make it fast and easy to use and less spam. So we added a new option to the business events that that can group the data. So you see there's option Rise Business Event. Now we can use it. We can do this not only for record or for all the records, but we can do this for group of records, right? And in my particular example, I want to show you how to do the notifications by the created sales order within a day are aggregated, grouped by the different salespersons. So in the day, like by the end of the day, we just count get all the sales orders and send the information to the salespersons of what have been achieved, right? So this will be done as an email. So if I go to the notification template, I actually can access these records. So within Acumatica, you can use this construction for each loop, where you can put the pool of the records, even if they actually grouped by the salesperson. Here you will get all the records and print them. So let me actually demonstrate it how it will look like. So if I go to the all emails, and for example, trigger this email that is generated from this notification, you can see that the salesperson gets a personalized email and has all the sales orders created from this day, right? So the different salespersons will have a different emails, right? So this is I think really cool, because you can have more less configurations, because it's one single business event, and actually you can have less events, but at the same time you can be on top of what is going on within your company. Okay, so business events adds quite some additional things I want to share with you. So for example, now you can include the report inside the business notification. So now if you have this notification where you remind about the due invoice, you have additional tab where you can include the invoice itself. So when you include the report, so you can actually choose any report and provide the parameters mapped by to the generic encoder. Report that you have here can be in a different formats: Excel, HTML, and PDF. Okay, so let me show you how it looks like. So if you choose the invoice here, you see that the invoice is the notification has been generated, and invoice is attached as a file. So that's exactly the report you choose. So if you choose it actually a little bit differently, so if you choose the embedded HTML, you can see the view like this. There is an email that is sent to the user, but no file attached, but report is printed as an HTML body within the email itself. It's actually very good for the mobile applications and for getting the information on the mobile in our world, because sometimes opening the PDF files is too long. You need to download it. You need to open it in a separate app. Comparing to this, the report that you get immediately in your Outlook or any other mail application just gives you the information immediately. Of course, you can still have PDFs when you send it to your customers or vendors to ensure the authority of your report. Okay, so let's move forward. Another scenario I want to show you, it's actually improvements in the import scenarios. So I actually like this a lot as well. I think it's the powerful thing that now gives you ability to do the business automations within Acumatica. So how it's possible? So we added the function. We have added the additional data provider to the import scenario that calls the generic inquiry provider, where you can choose the generic inquiry as a data source for the import scenario. So what it actually gives us? It gives us the unlimited possibilities, because the import scenarios in general, they're very flexible, but in this case you can really do the business automation. So the scenario from the slide here, so you see, for example, we have a purchase requisition and we have a requester who requests some items, and then there is a supervisor who approves his request. And then we can have a kind of generic inquiry where we can check if we have this item on warehouse or we need to purchase it. And if, for example, we have it on warehouse, so we have all the quantities on hand, we don't need to purchase, we can just do the inventory issue directly, right? So now with these business automations, you can create a generic inquiry, register it as a data source for import scenario. Then when you click the prepare, it will run and get a request from the import scenario. And then when you click import, it will actually generate you the inventory issue. So, and you remember you can schedule the import scenarios, or you even can link them to the business events. So that gives you the 100% online business automation. So I think this gives a lot of power to the non-programming customizations and integrations in the business flows. Okay, so the next thing I want to share with you, it's improvements in the business, in the email processing. So one of the common questions that we had in the past is that the emails that we send from Acumatica are not 100% personalized, because the name on the email usually was the email name of the account. So now with the settings, here in the new settings, you're able to choose that the email that is generated from Acumatica will have a name of the employee. So more personal approach to your customers, less miscommunications, better user representation. We also have improvements in the notifications templates that allows you to attach the emails generated from Acumatica to the particular entities. So for example, here, purchase order notifications can be attached to the vendor, to the employee contact, or to the document and to the document. Actually, not or, and. So, right? So when the purchase order notification is generated, so it will be attached, the same notification will be attached to the different entities. So if you look at the vendor, you see all the purchase orders triggered or sent from Acumatica. If you see the code to the employee, you can see what this employee done, and then you see the document, you see that the notification has been triggered from this document. So now you never lose your communication, and you have a single source of truth where data is stored. Okay. So we also have improved the way how you add the screens to your workspaces. We really moving and working on making our modern UI as user-friendly and as usable as possible. So we add now the ability for you to add the dashboards, application resources, generic inquiries, pivot tables, and reports directly to the workspace without additional steps to move them in the specific place. So now less steps, less configurations, faster report creation. Okay, so we also enhanced the document management a bit. So now when you attach the file, you actually can share the link between different documents. So let me find the invoice here, and let me try to demonstrate this thing, right? So I have an invoice, no files attached. So when I click on the files button here, now I can see add link and remove link buttons here. When I click add link, it will open me the pop-up where I can search for the file, warranty. Okay, so as soon as I search, you see Acumatica shows me the files that are attached to the different entities with the name I need. And I can just click add and close. So you see the PDF file attached here to my invoice. And this is the same PDF file. It's absolutely the same PDF file as was attached to the previous entity. So if I go into the file and see the entities, I will be able to see the sales order and invoice for the same file. So no need to upload the files twice. So now you can share it. Also, less database space. And in the end, you less pay for the storage. So I think it's a cool improvement that's simplified the work. And last thing I want to highlight, that we do the improvements for developers as well. So we really happy to have a huge number of ISVs and developers who bet on Acumatica, and we do some improvements for them. So with Acumatica 2019 R1, we have two huge improvements in the development that I want to highlight. It's a FBQL, or Fluent BQL, that simplifies the way how you write the BQL. BQL, it's our query language that allows to select data from the database. So it's easy to write it now. And second improvement, it's a link queue to BQL. That's actually simplify the way how you put the conditions and speed up the queries execution. So for developers, the BQL, the querying of the database, was a quite complicated part of Acumatica in the past. But I really hope that with these new improvements, it will be much easier for developers to learn Acumatica, a low entrance barrier, easy to familiar for everyone, easier to use, and as easy as to do and use, as less you have cost for the development, as more features they can bring to you, and as better it will be in that. So I'm quite happy with this. And that's it from my side. So thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Sergey, nice job. Now you can go get some sleep. I know it's late over there. So just a couple of topics. Well, one topic for now, and I'll be back later on in the session to talk about projects. But for now, we're going to talk about revenue recognition, specifically as it relates to ASC, Accounting Standards Codification 606, and IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. And the revenue rec requirements, the ability to manage contracts with multiple performance obligations. What we'll see here is support, upgrade, licensing. There's some key topics. We've added some new checkbox, for example, underneath fair market value. You'll see the reallocation pool is a new tab that we've added. We have term and start dates, and then we're going to look at the prorated fair market value of working with 606. So with that point, let me go ahead. I've already, in essence of time, now I'm going to start with enable, disable, because we do need to enable the feature. And by the way, I do want to point out, if you are looking at this solution, I highly encourage you to look at the recording on the partner portal for deferred revenue underneath our demo scripts. It's a good intro to deferred revenue from there. So you'll see that I've marked the checkbox allowing IFRS and 15 AS 606 to be active. From here, I'm going to call up a package called 606. I'm very creative here. So you'll see that I have, okay, so it's a non-stock item, and it's going to have 3 subcomponents. And you'll see that this package, if you will actually have a selling price. So it's a non-stock item, has a selling price of $1,000. If you look at the deferral settings tab, you'll see it's actually made up of 3 components: license, support, and upgrade. So these are my non-stock items, right? You'll see that they have a deferral code of 12 months, so they'll be allocated out 12 months equally. And the deferral code on the master item, if you will, is MDA, which is a multiple deliverable arrangement. Okay. So far, most of what we're talking about is common, or it's consistent with what we've seen before in deferred revenue. But let's go take a look at some of the new items that you'll see in 2019 R1. If I call up sales prices, for example, you'll note that we now have a checkbox for fair market value, and that's going to be critical when setting this up. So I'm just going to narrow down my search, item class ID. There's license support upgrade that we saw a few moments ago. There's a new checkbox representing that this is a fair value item, indicating that we will use it for ASC 606. And there is the price that's pulling from the item master, okay, for each of these particular items. Now, to see where this comes into play, if I call up invoice number 6875, all right, so we're going to see an invoice here. It's going to have that package item at the line item level, and you'll see it's being sold for $1,000. If you have any familiarity with deferred revenue, you know that when we click on that View Schedule button, it's going to pop the deferred revenue schedule, and then we're going to show you some new features that have been added there. Okay, all right, so there's the item for $1,000. Now when I choose to view schedule, what you'll see here is representation of the 3 sub-items that make up that package. So it'll be upgrade, support, and license. And again, similar to what we're seeing in deferred revenue, but now what you'll see is a couple things. You'll see the deferred amount, which is for these 3 items, $500, $333, and $166. Well, we're wondering, where does that come from? It actually comes from the reallocation pool, which is the new tab that was added in 2019 R1. And what we're doing is a formula that's going to help calculate what dollar value are we going to assign. So there's the fair market value of our 3 components, which equals $1,500. Right? If you recall, we sold the product for $1,000. So what I have to do is I actually have to do a calculation. Now this slide may look a little overwhelming, but pretty simple to follow. The deferral amount calculation is based on fair market value of the underlying items and calculated as follows. So there's the package selling price of $1,000. These are my 3 non-stock items in the fair market value. So it's $1,000 selling price at $750 for the license. Gives me a number divided by 1,500, which is the total of my fair market value, arriving at a $500 valuation being placed on the license, $333 for support, and upgrade of $167. So each time you go through this calculation, you will replace the $750 with the $500 and the $250 accordingly. I go back into Acumatica and go back onto my details. When I run the generate transactions, what you'll see here is, so for this transaction, for the 500, it would allocate out at $41 a month. And then each line, you have to calculate the generate transaction separately. And then just finally, if I were to go back onto the deferral schedule, and I was going to do another invoice, but I just lost time. So why don't I just hand back over to you, Doug?
Thanks, Eric. Speaking of compliance, we have a new feature in the financials called Making Tax Digital. This is a UK requirement in order to electronically communicate VAT tax sales, purchases, and other things to the UK government. It needs to be in place by April 1st, and we're going to install it as a customization that you can go download on GitHub. It'll be available for all the current 2018 R1, 2018 R2, and 19 R1 processes. So this will once again rolls out some of the compliance tools that we're making available to people who do business with customers in the UK. Another key area of focus was dealing with companies with complex financial structures. We have tenants that have distinct data. These can be independent companies with unique chart of accounts, base currencies, and they can have different financial periods. They can also have separate consolidations and customization projects installed. You can do simple consolidation, but you can't drill into the details of a consolidation across tenants. So we're working on creating these different companies with real-time interaction. When you create a transaction, you'll get a real-time due to and due from entries, as long as you don't have the 3 C's. With 2019 R2, we were able to take the C that's related to the fiscal period and the calendar, and we were able to break that restriction. In 2018 R2, we started to address some of these issues. We were able to manage periods by company and we could instituted additional validations, so we could easily generate calendars for each individual company, and within those calendars we could open and close periods separately. What happened new with 2019 R2, or what happened in 2019 R1, is that now they don't have to have the same start and stop dates. So for example, you can have company 1 that starts in January, and company 2 could have a starting period of April. We also created reports. So if you're using our ARM to build financial reports, you'll be able to produce reports that are done based on the master calendar or based on a consolidation of the company calendars. If you consolidate based on company calendars, notice that you might get a report that has January and April data in a single report. So let's take a look and see how some of that is going to work on the system itself. The first thing we need to do is go into the Enable Disable Features screen. Here I'm going to uncheck Centralized Period Management. This means every individual company and branch can have, or every company can have their own set of periods. I'm also going to enable multiple calendar support. With that done, I can go create another ledger. I'm going to create an actual ledger for a new company that we're going to create. Next, I'm going to go create my new company. And in order to make this work, we're going to add some branches. We'll go in and add our ledger that we just created for the actual ledger. I'm also going to add in an access role so we can get to it. And we'll make this the US. So now we have a new company set up that we can add to our financial structure. Now the thing about this new company is we're going to work a different financial calendar for it. So let's go to our company financial calendar screen. Open him up in a new tab. And I'm going to go ahead and select my new one that I just created. Now when I do that, notice that the first thing that happens is it's got to figure out what the first calendar year is, and it's also got to figure out the first period. So remember I said we're going to shift this one a little per our diagram earlier. So now you'll see that we've got this new company created. Now in order to do this, we're going to generate the calendar, but we want to actually go out and get to where we are currently so we can process. Okay, so now I can go out to my current year and I'll go to Actions and I'll open my periods. Let's go down to the end and we'll just process all of these. And now our new company has a set of open financial periods that are staggered in their fiscal year starts in April instead of January. So now we're ready to go create a new journal transaction for our new company. Let's go into Finance, create a new journal entry, and open that in a new tab. We're going to start this with our new company. And notice as soon as I select it, I get the post period is different from the transaction date. If I go down here, I'll just create some sample transaction. Purposes of what we have. Now notice that we have the staggered set of transactions. If I'd switch this back to, for example, products retail, everything is back to our standard calendar, but we're going to go ahead and process and release this one in our new company. Oops, forgot to add a project, and we'll release our transaction. So now let's take a look and see how that's going to work in our reports. So we'll go back to, we'll find a report that might be interesting for this. Let's run this for the actual, let's run this for the NewCo ledger instead of the actual ledger. And you'll see that my period ending 12/28 is where my transaction appears. If I need to do a consolidation, I can go back and edit my report. And this time we're going to check the button called Use Master Calendar. So we'll go ahead and hit Save, and then we'll preview this report. Once again, we need to select our new company, and we're going to go ahead and run it. And now notice when we run that with our new standard master calendar, we go ahead and get the 123 appearing in this current period. The net of this is that you've seen the options to run ARM with both the consolidated master and the consolidated company. In addition to the ARM support, in the release notes there's some mention of inventory accounting. The inventory transaction history and inventory transactions by account use the master periods. The inventory transactions by account does have the option to use the dates or the calendar if you choose to do that. The next area of improvement in 2019 R1 has to do with the credit card processing. Specifically with Authorize.net, there's three plugins that we've currently used. One of those is the SIM plugin, which is no longer supported by Authorize.net. The other is the AIM plugin, which has been deprecated but not completely phased out yet. That is a non-tokenized process, which means that credit card information is stored in Acumatica. So people utilizing this are not going to be PCI compliant. In 2019 R1, we're pushing everybody to use the new plugin that uses the Authorize.net APIs. In addition to that, we've added the ability to sync credit card information with Authorize.net to help people who are doing new implementations, as well as to help situations where people need to go in and sync credit card information that's been added to Authorize.net, but not necessarily with Acumatica. So let's go into the application and take a look and see how this would appear. Within the new Processing Center screen, you can see in the sales demonstration data we have the two deprecated ones, these which are not active, as well as the new tokenized API. You can see the type of plugin being utilized here. And if we go in, you can also assign different payment methods to these. And then here's all of the connection preferences that go along with this new one. Most importantly, there's a new checkbox which allows you to accept a new card payment. This means that you can go in and enter a sales order and collect a new card, and with that new card it'll automatically get added to the system and pay and be reflected against that sales order. So let's take a look at what that would look like. That new payment card can also be filled out on invoices and other screens, but we're going to go take a look at what it would look like on a sales order. So we'll set up a transaction. We'll grab just some amount to charge, and then we'll navigate over to our payment settings. Within the payment settings, I'm going to select a tokenized Visa. And you can see there's this new card indicator. After checking the new card indicator, this button called Create New Card appears. So I can click that, and it will automatically pop open a window that's a link to Authorize.net. And we'll let that be auto-filled, and we'll save that card. Now we're going to get an issue because we've used this a little too much and can't save more than 10 profiles, but it'll still go back and retrieve the old profile for us. So this is the token that allows us to link this particular card with this particular user. With that complete, I can now go capture or authorize a payment. So let's go actually capture the payment for 500. When that's complete, you'll notice over here on my Payments tab, I have a transaction that's appeared. Now within Acumatica, I showed you the sales order screen, but this can also happen on several other. You can do it on the invoices, the payments and applications, as well as the cash sales screen. If a transaction gets held for review for some reason, we'll see that this was a demonstration situation, so it was naturally approved. You can go to authorize.net and click the transaction search, look for suspicious transaction, and go validate the payment manually should you need to do that. We also created a new screen called the Payment Processor Converter. This payment method converter allows people who are using an old mechanism, let's say this old Visa, to go in and use the new processing center. This will automatically convert all of these cards that are listed here to take advantage of the new payment method that you created. This will greatly simplify what you need to do in terms of converting customers to the new and modern API interface that we provide for authorize.net. Within your processing center, the new processing area allows you to go in and synchronize cards between authorize.net and Acumatica. So this would be important if you're starting out a new application, or you're starting doing an implementation, or if the customer goes in and enters credit card data directly into authorize.net as opposed to doing it inside Acumatica. This will help you with that process as well. The next feature is the reconciliation tools for control accounts. One of the things that we've had people do is they've entered a lot of data into the system, which has caused a discrepancy between their business accounts and the balances in AR and AP. We're going to, in the future, restrict the ability to link those two. But in the meantime, we've provided a series of reports that will let you quickly gather that information and report on it. So if we want to go see what some of those reports look like, we'll search for discrepancy. So you see that's both in the payables as well as the receivables area. So let's go ahead and select discrepancy by account. And we'll select the current period for that. And you can see if we uncheck this, there's this AP account. Right now, there's no discrepancy. If we go in, typically one of the ways this can happen is if we're going in to make a journal entry. We would go in and create something in the payables area. So let's say account payable, we'll add in some amount, and maybe we just got some cash for that. And we didn't register it against a customer balance, which is probably the source of the potential issue. So once we do that and we refresh our report, you'll see that we'll now get this non-AP transactions that have filled into here. In addition, you can drill into these. So if you'll go into receivables and pick the current period, you'll notice that there's a discrepancy that you can drill into. This will open up the discrepancy by customer. And then once you go into that, you can actually view any specific documents that may have been the cause for the discrepancy and go make a correction to them. So once again, other changes will be coming in the near future, but those are the ones that we've got, the reports that we've made that are available immediately. Next, we've made some tax improvements. The tax improvements were made to several different screens in Acumatica. When you create a sales order, you'll see, or it'll create an invoice. And the ship to contact has now been added to the invoices screen. This is the information that's going to get passed along to third-party tax providers such as Avalara. This information can be modified. It didn't used to be modified. You were stuck with what you got on a sales order, but now you can go in and change that to reflect the appropriate shipping settings. We've also renamed several of the fields. You'll see that this whole address details area has a whole new brand new look and feel to it. These are all things that can happen to once again improve the way that taxes are available. Next, we want to talk about 3 different features that are included with the financials that make them a little bit more usable in terms of making the application much better in terms of how we would manage it. There's 3 items. We'll just do a quick screen share to show them. We're able to restrict search fields. That's more of a platform, but it also makes itself available through the financials. We can deactivate deferral codes. We used to not be able to do that. And in 2019 R1, there's a predefined list of currencies. So I'll show that in just a second. So let's take a look at the first one, which is to speed up processing time. We have the ability to restrict search fields. So we'll go into a customers screen. And within the customers, you'll see we get a list of all the Acumatica customers. We can do a search for New York, and it's going to find all the customers with this particular name call. Now, if we all want to go in and modify that, let's say we want to actually pick up things in this city called New York, we can go in and edit our generic inquiry. This is the generic inquiry that replaces that screen, so it's the initial one that you would get. Within here, you'll have to enable this one called Use in Quick Search so that you can see it. And you'll see that the first 2, customer and account name, are available. Let's go make city part of the quick search menu. Let's save our inquiry and view it. And now you'll see that we bring back not only customer names, but city names as well. So this is one way Acumatica becomes to make that quick search a little bit more useful. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the currencies. So under currencies and currency management, you'll see that there's a list of all the different currencies that you might encounter. These are preloaded so that when we work with external systems that follow ISO standards, we'll automatically work with those different currencies. In addition, all the symbols have been loaded in as well. As you need to, you can go in and activate these currencies. If you pull in anyone, you'll see that this one's not active. Within the sales demonstration data, we have a number of different active currencies, but then you can go ahead and do this. As always, you can go in and use the automated process to update your currency amounts within your currency by doing your refresh currency rates once you activate all of them. So that's a quick view of some of the financials that we've done and some of the financial features in 2019 R2. Next, we want to move on to inventory and order management. Within inventory and order management, we've made some additional improvements for commerce processing. One of the issues that we would run in with commerce processing was that there'd be slight differences in the way that charges would take place. So you may collect, $10 on your commerce site, but then someone might change a shipping address, or someone might change a shipping mechanism, and they might be late getting the order out. The tax calculation might come out slightly different, and it was holding up orders because we'd create this invoice, but we'd already have a payment of the $10 amount, and there might be something different that was caused. So this is going to save time in terms of people that run commerce sites. So let's go ahead and take a look at how that would work in the system in the sales demonstration data. So let's go create a new sales order. For this sales order, we're going to use a new type called commerce. This one's been set up so that it automatically it'll automatically get rid of and make that happen, so that it'll automatically write off the changes. So we'll say commerce order and payment. We'll go in, grab an item, and now we have a commerce order. As you know, we would typically also, oops, let's do something a little less, that's big. Let's do some widget 01s. Do 10 of those guys. Keep my math a little easier. So we're going and grab some of those 10 of the widget 1s, and then we can go in where we would expect to receive our payment would also come through with the order. So we're going to go into the payments, and we're going to create this payment that we've already received. This would come in once again from the order from the commerce system. Go ahead and release that. And as you release it, you'll see that it's already been applied to our order that we have right here. So now we've got a $10 order. But now let's say we come in and we change something. So we can come into the shipping settings, and we might, for example, change the shipping terms and put on a handling charge. So that would increase it to 20. The other thing that might happen is we could come into our financial settings, and we may override the tax zone. So that we're going to have now an additional charge associated with that. To speed this process along, I think I'm going to do the quick process. We'll confirm, update, prepare, and release our invoice. So we're going to go ahead and let all this run for a while. This is obviously creating the shipment. Then we're going ahead and we'll be creating the invoice in just a second. When we create the invoice, we'll be able to go in and see that the write-off has automatically occurred. So we're not holding things up, waiting for the customer to pay an additional dollar. So I'm going to open up this invoice screen. And under financial details, we'll open up our batch. And actually did occur the tax. So I must not have had this guy set up. So I'll show you one more thing about the setup. It does have enable write-offs. So it should have automatically written that off in order to correspond with the amount that was already captured from the customer amount. In 2018 R2, we also simplified the purchase order receiving process. That led, that's just one of the things I wanted to remind. We removed all the tax information and everything else from these receipt screens, which was part of why we demonstrated that and made that possible. Also in 2018 R2, if there was time permitting, we'd go through and show how this would occur, where you could do purchase returns. There's different options within Acumatica to do purchase returns. You can returns based on the inventory valuation. The problem with that is that sometimes you may end up with this purchase accrual account. The other problem is some people, we added the ability so that you could return items based on the specific cost that you received. So when you went in and picked a specific item that you're going to return, it would go back into the order. And if it was one of the $100 items, it would credit that. And if it was an $80 item, it would credit that. So those are two of the things that we've started working up towards in 2018 R2 that we've gotten a lot of questions about still. One of the main areas of focus in 2019 R1 is the WMS feature. So we have a warehouse management. So the benefits of the internal Acumatica warehouse management solution is that everything's in real time. So the mobile device is going to work with the database so that everything occurs the instant it's scanned and received. We've done this. We've created a number of processes, automated, receiving, put away and transfers, pick, pack, and ship. And we're going to walk through a few of those today, as many as we can get through within the allotted time. So let's go in. First, we'll show how to receive goods. So you can receive goods from a purchase order. You can do a receive and put away in one step. You can do a two-step with a transfer. Lot and serial numbers and units of measure are all supported within this. So let's go in. We'll go in and start this process with a purchase order. So let's go create a new purchase order. And we'll pick a vendor. And we'll do simple PO. So we're going to go create this purchase order, and then we're going to go receive it using the mobile device. So the widget 01s, we'll go get, we'll order 25 of those. There's also a Powerade option. The Powerade's lot and serial numbered. So we'll be able to show how a lot and serial number would come in and how that process would occur as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save that, take it off hold, action, approve. So now we have an open purchase order. Now we can create, if we needed to, a purchase receipt against this. But what we're going to do in this case is we're going to go in and we're actually going to receive the order directly. So let's pull up our mobile phone. This is the device that was shown in the previous slide. It's a Zebra system that will allow us to do these. In order to simplify some of the scanning, from time to time I'm going to show this screen, which is going to allow me to go in and scan. If I put in a purchase order, it's going to create a barcode that I can read. So you'll see that from time to time as well. All right, so let's go in and log into our system on our mobile scanner. And you'll see that down towards the bottom of this menu, we have this new option called Warehouse Management. Within Warehouse Management, I'm going to do a receive and put away as part of this. So let's click that one. And now you'll see that the first thing I need to do is scan the receipt number. So we're going to go ahead and pop back this person, and I'm going to scan it. And let's get this out of the way again. And you'll see that the receipt gets loaded in and it's ready to go. So now we can start scanning our items. So it's going to say scan the barcode item. So I have a list of items that barcodes that correspond to widget 01. So we'll go scan that. And you can see now we've got our widget 01 selected. Next, it's asking for the location. So I'm going to go put this away in my warehouse location, R1 S1. Now, I had to go get 25 of those, so the option is to keep scanning and then keep scanning locations. However, what I might want to do instead is use this set quantity button, and I'm going to go in and put in my 25 items so we can have that all at once. Okay, so next we need to go grab our Powerade. Now remember, the difference with the Powerade is that it's lot and serial numbered. So it's going to, when I scan that, it's going to ask for a lot and serial number. I have some sheets in front of me with lot and serial numbers, so I'll just scan serial number 1. Then we have to put it away into a location. So we went ahead and did that, and we're going to set the quantity there as well so that we can speed the process along. Now, at this point, you can see that the purchase order has been received. There's an ability to click this review button, and you can go in and take a look at what's on your item and then what's actually been received. But in this case, we got the feedback immediately. Up here, you can click the release, and now we're going ahead and actually completed the confirmation of that receipt. Now, if I come back into my application over here, I'm going to go into the purchase receipt screen. And you'll see that here's the one we have at the end, which makes that possible. This is what it got created in the background. So this was a way to do, this was one process to go in and do that. There's other options that you have. If you want to go into, for example, your purchase order and into your purchase order preferences, I'm going to open that in a new tab. You have the ability to set how all these receiving settings work. So we can go in and you can say use a single receiving location. So remember, I had to scan each time, but if I used a single receiving location, then everything would occur very easily when it would require a little less scanning. So the application can be configured to meet your specific needs. So that's a quick look at some of the features that are available within the receipt area of this. Let's go in and talk about the other side, which is the sales order, to go in and pick, pack, and ship the sales order. To do that, we're going to go into the system again. We're going to create a simple sales order, and we're going to go in and show some of the picking and packing options for that. So let's go in, hit the sales order, new sales order, and we'll create one. We're going to use some of the maybe the items that we just received in. So we'll go grab a couple of widgets, and we'll go grab our Powerade. Now, if I click on this Powerade, I'm going to show you one other feature that's supported. Within the sales demonstration data, we've got this set up so that there's this cross-reference tab. This is where you can specify the different barcodes that scan to this particular inventory item. You also see that there's a unit of measure associated with that. So I can actually scan a box of Powerade. If I don't want to go in and scan one and add a quantity of 10, you can go in and utilize these units of measure. All right, so let's go in and we're going to create the shipment. Oops, let's cancel that. Let's do these both from the wholesale warehouse. And save that. And we're going to go in and create our shipment. So now we have a shipment that we're ready to head back out to the warehouse, so the warehouse can begin scanning this. So let's go back to our main area we have. We'll do the pick, pack, and ship option. And instead of scanning and copying that in, I'm just going to copy it over manually from what you see here, 5, 7. And now we've got that ready to go in. We could have also, obviously, if we needed to, we could have printed the pick list and gone in and scanned off that, but that would have taken a little bit longer. So now I need to decide where I'm going to go grab these items from. So we're going to include a pick, and this is basically the pick process. So we're going to go out to our location where we received them, and then we're going to go grab our item, which is a widget 1. And we grabbed one of those. So if I can go in, I can set the location and grab my second one of those. Let's go grab back to our location. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to get our Powerade, but instead of scanning multiple ones of those, we're going to scan the Powerade box. Now we need to go grab our lot and serial number. So I'm going to go do that. And you can see that that we're all ready to go. Now at this point, we've picked. If I wanted to, I could click this button up here and confirm my shipment. This is if you're doing all of your picking and packing in one step. If I chose to otherwise, I could hit this area and I could scan something called @pack. It's a special barcode that would put it in packing mode. Or I can go down here to the change mode area. It's not there yet, and change it to pack if I wanted to do that. So all those, so that could be done as well. I'm not sure why I'm not getting a pack option. Let's try one more thing. Let's try, well, we'll go ahead and confirm it just to keep it moving. So this is going to go in and actually confirm it. If we had more time, I'd go through an option where we could go through and do a packing option as well. All right, next we have, so that was about picking, packing, and shipping. You can even break it out into 3. If I wanted to, I could have separated the packing, scanned boxes, and then put items in boxes before I confirmed it. And then the last one, I could have broken out a shipping option where after the boxes have been packed, I can go in and grab an option to do the shipment where I could pick a carrier or do rate shipping from the mobile device to go make that happen. The next thing is item and storage lookup. It's quite a simple process. We'll just do one short example to show that. If I go back to my, we'll save that. We'll go back into our main area, and you'll see that there's both an item lookup as well as a storage lookup. So the item lookup allows me to scan an inventory item and see everything, and then the storage would allow me to spot a location. So let's actually do a storage one. So it's going to ask what warehouse we're in. We'll go into the wholesale. I don't have a barcode for this, but we'll do it that way. And I mistyped it, so we'll try that again. Okay, and we'll scan our location. And we'll hit review down at the bottom, and you'll get to see all the different items that we have in this in that area. So you can see all the items we scanned, as well as a number of them are available. Items are loaded as the screen is scrolled, so that's why the response time is going to be very strong and fast on this. So that's a little bit about item and storage lookup. Another thing that we've enabled with our WMS system is the ability to do physical inventory counts. Physical inventory counting, we improved in 2019 R1 to add the ability to scan things with zero quantity. We didn't used to be able to add that, and people gave us the feedback that they needed that functionality. The other thing that we have is that we have the ability to unlock items or location during physical inventory. All these things are designed to make it more efficient when you're doing your physical inventory. So if you don't want to lock down specific items, you can go ahead and allow those things to occur. You can also unlock, after you finish scanning, you can make things, unlock things as well. So let's go do a quick physical inventory demonstration. So we'll go to our, we'll go to prepare physical, we'll create a new count, prepare physical count. And we're going to pick something small here. We'll just go grab computers. And well, at this point, you'll see you can generate which locations, you can exclude locations. You can go in and say, I want to exclude certain inventory items to do that. And then once you have all your selections generated, you go in and you generate your physical inventory. So now I have the physical inventory, and I can look at my number and start going in and doing scans against that. So for this one, it's a fairly limited one where we're just scanning some Lenovo laptops. Let me actually make sure I've got a barcode associated with that before I do it. I don't. So let's go set up a barcode for our Lenovos. Okay, and then we'll go out to our mobile device and start that process. So you'll see that we have a scan and count function that's part of that helps with physical inventory counting. Now we have to go in and scan our reference number. Let's see if I can, looks like we got 5 zeros and an 8. So now we're ready to go in and start scanning these. You can see this location is unfortunately something I don't have a barcode for, so we're just going to type that in manually. Normally you would be able to go into the, you'd just be able to scan that from the bin location, but we'll go do that one this way. If I didn't scan it, it would automatically add another location, which is what I could have done. And now I can go start scanning my items, which I did. So I think I put in 7, put in that guy, and so on and so forth. So that gives you an idea of how you would go through the process of making these occur. So you can see we've got one that we've actually physically scanned, and you would go ahead and continue to do this following that mechanism until you've got everything set up how you want it. Now, the other, so I already talked about some of the improvements. In the interest of time, I'm not going to show these. These are simple examples. You can also use the mobile device to create inventory issues, receipts, as well as transfers, where you can go in and use these 3 applets here to make those things happen as well directly from the mobile device. Those are useful in situations where you have a simple receipt that needs to come into your warehouse, or if you want to issue something to a project, often those are types of things that would be done. We also have done several improvements to the UI in terms of inventory. The inventory allocation screen is one that gives a lot of details about how a specific inventory item looks. So let's go into our, let's do inventory allocation details. And we'll pick out our widget 01. So you can see we've been doing a number of sales orders, so it gives us all the current exemptions. Over on this area, you can see you get a total number of additions and a total number of deductions. And if you need to see all the different mechanisms by which things can be added and deducted, you can expand this field to break that out a little bit differently. This will also allow us in the future to add more and more mechanisms that are associated with that. All right, so that's a lot of the enhancements in the distribution area were associated with this warehouse management solution that we had. In addition to that, we did improve, we allowed the ability to accept multiple ship-to addresses. So you can go through, create multiple shipments and combine multiple shipments on a single invoice. We've improved the way that that occurs, where you can keep track of the fact there may have been multiple ship-to addresses that came in because there were multiple shipments on one invoice. That's very important if you need to send specific information to external tax providers. So all that improvement, once again, has been made so that we can accommodate that and then link back to the shipping information. So that's a quick review of the features, primarily the warehouse management features that have been added to the distribution capabilities of Acumatica in 2019 R1. I'm going to turn it back over to Eric so that he can start demonstrating the project components.
Very good, Doug. I appreciate the interesting functionality there. I'm looking forward to demoing that myself before too long. So just before we get into the functionality and showing some transactions, I want to talk about and reinforce some functionality that was added in 2018 R2. So this past fall, where we added project quote highlights. One thing I love about Acumatica in the 15 or 16 months that I've been here is not only do we add new functionality, but we continue to enhance it, and project quotes is a perfect example of that. So here we have, again, in 2018 R2, working with project quotes, the ability to work with templates in standard pricing, complete quote workflow, which means I can maintain this quote in the CRM, solution visibility back into projects, working with things like templates. I have the ability to approve, print, and email these items. We have version control as it relates to project quotes as well. And we can convert to project and maintain the quoted pricing and enter data once, like notes and files will transfer over when we create that project. Now we're going to see a project quote here in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to talk about, again, something else that was added in 2018 R2. Make sure everyone's aware of it, is the labor cost rate enhancement. All right, so now just be aware this is not only available to project, but as we know, our sister solution construction, but also in field services, manufacturing, and other ISV applications. This is a solution that's going to allow me to manage rates for my employees. In the old days, by old days I mean pre-Eric, we had to call up an employee, and if I needed to manage rates for each of those employees, I had to do it manually. So I had to call up Todd Bloom, and I had to call up Max, and I had to call up Martin and maintain all those rates of the individuals. Now we provide you with a labor rate schedule. So let's go ahead and jump into Acumatica. All right, and if I call up the rates, okay, I'm gonna have this labor rate schedule. And what I've done actually is, again, we do have the ability to export this. So let me, when this calls up, I'll show you where you can maintain the employees, the labor. item, the scheduled hours, whoops, what happened? I was just in there.
Ring Central tends to slow it down.
Okay, sorry about that. I was trying to keep my, oops. Acumatica live while we were in between sessions. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up that labor cost rate on the project section. And within here, we'll see employees, labor items, rates, hours per week. And again, also this is helpful if you're working with unions, right? And you have to update rates on a fairly regular basis. This is going to allow you to do that very quickly, right? So here we'll see all of our employees as well as the labor items. And if you scroll over to the right, this is the rate. So people say, well, geez, yeah, we're going to charge $100 an hour, but what is their burden rate? So this is where it's pulling from, right? So what I've done, I actually have already exported this to a file through the Excel icon. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to go ahead and remove all of these labor items accordingly. And then we're going to re-import this document. So I'm going to delete that. And I've also added on David Chubb a description, Acumatica 2019 R1. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Again, I just exported it through core functionality within Acumatica. And now I'm going to go ahead and import. So I'm going to browse out to that file. Okay, patience is a virtue. I clicked on it about 6 times. So we're going to go ahead and upload final. And there we go. And it's going to ask me, I think it's going to try to do some mapping. It's going to look for the employee name. That's going to pull from the employee ID. So I can leave that blank. And it just imported all of those, I don't know, 25 rows or what have you. And you'll see how the labor item is blank, all right? And there's the Acumatica 2019 R1 that we saw in my spreadsheet. So just some demonstration purposes. And there's all of the rates that had brought in as well. Okay, now where would that come into play? For example, if I call up my opportunity, as we talked about when Doug handed back over to me, we have these project quotes, opportunity quotes. And on this particular opportunity, I can call up the opportunity, drill back on the quote that I have, quote number 8. And we'll see that the margin at this point is at 46.36, I believe. Yep, so 46% margin. Their senior consultant. When I add David Chubb, note the unit cost rate is $40. If I add David Chubb to this, it's going to pull his rate from that labor rate sheet. So if you wanted to know, again, where is that coming from? When I save it, my unit cost has been updated. My margin has been updated, and now when I submit this quote and convert it to a project, I'm going to go ahead and accept all, or I'm not bringing any additional information in. We are now going to be on the project quote, and you'll see how the rate was brought in for us as well on the cost budget tab. Okay, and there it is, and there's the unit rate. So I just want to kind of give you some relationship is how do those labor rate schedule comes into play. All right, so multi-currency projects. So the last 8 or 9 minutes here that I have, I will go over and talk about the functionality in multi-currency projects. I take that back, this and budgeting actually. So the next 6-7 minutes will be on multi-currency. So in the business scenario is now you can manage project budgets in project as well as the customer currency. So if you have operations here, headquarters is in the US, but you're doing projects in the Canadian dollar, you're going to be able to do that and manage that as well. Track actuals and base as well as project currency. Reporting on projects and base and project currency. Underneath project billing, you can bill for local clients. The ability for companies with an occasional foreign client to bill in that currency. And companies doing business internationally can bill and manage in currency. In addition, track commitments and change orders in the various currencies as well. So the billing scenarios, we can do progress billing from revenue budget and project currency like we're used to. As if the billing rule has been complex, it's just going to get a little bit more complex now in the way we're going to calculate and do some translations on those billing rules as well, and I'll show you that here in just a moment. And then you could use recurring billing in project currency as well. Very nice dashboard that we've added to Acumatica. It's not just a PowerPoint slide. This is a dashboard that has now been added to Acumatica. So let's go ahead and take a look in Acumatica. And click on favorites. It's normally under dashboards, but I've created a shortcut underneath favorites to this dashboard. Okay, and the first thing we'll see here is, again, similar to other workflow dashboards that we've seen in Acumatica. If I click on a particular item, it's going to take me back to that area within Acumatica. So again, remember when you're demonstrating products, make sure you're using those demo flows wherever you can. Now I'm going to call up project number 12, which is my default project. Select it. Okay, first thing I want to do is drill back on that template, so you'll note that I'm working with a template called Simple Multi-Currency Example. Again, I'm very creative. And one of the things you'll see here is the rate now. The project currency rate is being stored on here as well, okay? The other thing I want to point out is I'm back on my project. If I go onto the billing rule, in the demo snapshot, we have currency, time and material progress. All right, so if I drill back on that, okay, we can see TM progress with multi-currency. And if I click on the labor app project, again, I don't expect you to understand all the syntax at this moment. I just want to point out what we're doing is specifically as it relates to labor. Todd Bloom, for example, is a US employee. His rate is at US dollar. What this syntax is doing is actually converting his rate for me from US dollar to the euro, for example. Okay. So let me go back onto my multi-currency workflow. Again, from here, you could launch into opportunities and view the project quotes that we just saw a moment ago, or you can enter consulting hours. I'm going to show you expenses here. So if you enter your travel expenses, note that it's going to track it in the local currency as well. So you're going to see that I entered an expense item for, I believe it was Martin or Martine. And if we call it up, because he is actually tied to, there it is, the euro. When he enters transactions, note that his expenses are being tracked in the euro. But if I want to view the base, I could do that as well. So not only can I have the USD at 146, I can view in the base currency, and it's going to come through at 128. Okay, so back onto the project flow. Okay, so from here, if I click on change orders, I can access change orders or invoices. And what we're going to see here is a pro forma invoice. Now, I believe I posted it. So we're just, even though it's posted or closed, if you will, I can still share the information that I want to make sure I'm sharing with you. And there's, again, project number 12, pro forma transaction number 10. I drill back on it. Okay. And we're going to go on to the time and materials tab. All right, so there's all my transactions. All right, and then note up here, I can view, again, as we know, the pro forma invoice is a duplicate of the actual invoice, but allows us to do some edits. So here, I'm going to see it in the euro at 12,627, and in US dollars, that's going to be 14,335. Okay, so the ability to view that, and then a couple other things from the dashboard. I can view management reports, which is in essence of time. I'm not going to click on it, but it would take me to my project manager dashboard. If I click on project reports, what I can see here is transactions, and why this is going to be helpful to us is I'm looking at, again, that project number 12. I'm going to be able to see transactions right from here. Okay, and there it is, side by each, US dollars and euros. Okay, so very powerful report, nicely done in terms of reporting, the ability to view transactions. And then the last thing I want to show you or just reinforce for you on the project, if I go back into the PowerPoint, which I have here, again, just be aware on the project itself, the various currencies. So there's the base currency and the project currency, which is new. All right, we have the transaction currency. Okay, and then the project features where this is looked at is within budgeting, change orders, cost commitments, and project quotes, which we saw is associated with CRM. Okay, and then the last topic I want to talk about is the enhanced project budgeting capabilities of Acumatica. So you'll see here is the ability to manage budget revision history. Okay, you could do period level budgets and then forecast versus actual. Right, and what you'll see here is you can actually, the features allow you to add periods either automatically or manually. You can distribute automatically or manually, and then you can update the budget from the forecast and push it back into your budget, into your project. So for now, let's go ahead and call up a new project, project number 9. Okay. All right, so there she is, number 9. Just a couple things, because I am working with change orders here. It's going to be important that the project is active. Okay. So you'll see the project is active. The dates, this is going to be important because when I distribute the budget, it's going to distribute based on this 4-month period. All right. And then also allow change order is going to be marked. I have one master task that I'm working from within, as well as revenue, one master revenue line item that I'm working within. Okay. I can hear the cost and then look at the different types that I have here, the different labors, consulting junior, consulting PM, and consulting senior, right? And then a material item as well. And then on the balances, you will see, okay, so we're looking at $11,000 in revenue, $6,100 in expenses, not too bad of a margin. And then the other thing I want to show, and which we're going to come back and see in just a moment, is this change order. Okay, so we'll revisit that in just a minute, but I just want to point out that we do have a change order. At this point from the project, I'm going to choose inquiries and project budget forecast. All right, and when I do so, one of the first things you have, as I mentioned on the slide, you have the ability to maintain certain versions or revisions. So I'm just going to call this, did 01 there, I think it, okay, and just going to put budget test here. Okay. And then note on the right-hand side, I can do it by project task or type. I'm going to choose all, so it'll provide my revenue item in here as well. But otherwise, recognize that you can do it by assets, liabilities, which would be WIP, for example, or income or expenses. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is choose generate periods. Okay, so you'll see now that I have, there's March through June, because remember the project runs March through June, and then we'll see my various items, junior consultant, project manager, senior consultant, and material. Okay, but you also note that we got these warnings saying, look, yeah, that's great that you've got these dollars, but they actually need to be distributed. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and choose to distribute. And you can distribute in total, or you could say just add the delta, for example. And then you can also choose what columns do you want to update. For now, I'm going to choose all budget lines, and you'll see that that information is getting allocated out. Okay. Now from here, I can actually edit if I wanted to. I can also add periods here if I wanted to. Okay. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save and close that budget and that forecast, if you will. And I'm going to go back on project 9 and let's revisit that change order that we spoke about a moment ago. It's not been released, and you'll see we're adding some additional goods and services here. And I'm going to remove the hold and release, and then we're going to go look at that budget forecast again. So hold and release. Okay. And what are we looking at? We're looking at 5 hours at $50 and 1 material item. So close this and back into inquiries, project budget forecast. And now if we scroll down, there's the warning again. Why? Because I just added, look at the column, revised budget quantity, revised budget amount. All right, we got the 5 at 50 for 250, and we have one additional Acer laptop that we're adding. I think we have $1,000 in revenue that I did not show you on the change order. All right, so now when I choose to distribute, so let's focus on the consulting senior. All right, it's 5, okay. Go ahead and distribute. And I'm going to go ahead and accept the defaults. And you'll now see that consulting senior has been updated to reflect the additional 5 hours. So we went from 20 hours to 25 hours. That would be updated on the project. So let me go ahead and save and close this. And then the last thing I want to talk about is a nice pivot table. And Doug, I believe we're going to add this to the demo snapshot. Just confirm that for me when we come back to you, which is about 30 seconds away. Now, if I come back in that project ID, I'm going to click harder, 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest. You want to click about a 9.
Oh, this has been added, by the way, Eric.
Okay, beautiful. So there's the project number 9. I just wanted to remove the other project so we can focus on it. All right, and there you recognize the 3 items, junior, project manager, and senior, and then you recognize some hours, and there's our change order. So if you scroll over, you get a nice monthly summary of what's going on, and then in the far right, you get a nice total as well. So that's a very powerful pivot table. And with that, I'm just going to close out. I think I have the last slide here, which is showing you the pivot that I had showed you at the end there. So I appreciate your time. Doug, back to you.
Great. Thank you, Eric. We're running a little short on time, so I'm going to talk about CRM, but I'm going to do it very quickly. Within the customer relationship management area, we added some assignment and approval map improvements. So if you go there, you have now the ability to require a reason code if you accept or reject somebody. You also have the ability to temporarily deactivate some of these steps that you see here. That's useful if people are on vacation or something's not, you want to temporarily remove something. So in terms of the sales demonstration data, there's the screen assignment and approval maps. These are the old assignment and approval maps from a few releases ago. I'm going to click on these. Anything that says approval map or assignment map are in the new featured ones. So we're going to click on this approval map. You can see I have something here, my departmental claim. Within the rule action, I can go in here and create this reason code, make it optional or required if they reject it or if they approve it. In addition, one of the things you'll notice, the ability I can collect all approvals from this step. So maybe there's multiple approvals that have to be done. So if somebody's from the sales department but also has a claim over $1,000, then you collect everything. You also have the ability that once you get an approval, you can complete the step if needed. Over here at the step level, you'll see if I have this thing called all other claims. This takes advantage of some new functionality where this is only active if no approvers have been found at previous steps. People were building very large and complex approval maps, and it was difficult. They always wanted somebody to approve it. So this is a way that you can include a catch-all at the very end if you need to go ahead and do that. So those are some of the new improvements with assignment and approval maps that are added. We've also added some additional shipping information and opportunities. Many times when a salesperson's creating a quote, you need to be able to go in and accurately predict taxes, discounts, and other things on that. Oftentimes the person shipping the order, the salesperson knows where it needs to be shipped as well. So that information can now be communicated to the actual order that gets created. As you can see here, there's a series of different options of how it's going to select the shipping address to fill in to that area based on the information that's available. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do the demonstration for that. Sergey already talked about information about the email sender within the support cases. You might want to have set to the employee name, which means that admin@revision2.com would have Doug Johnson, but maybe you just want that to be admin. If that's the case, then you would just set it to the email account display name. In addition, we've been making a lot of enhancements to the mobile app and the way that all the opportunities appear there. So as one final area of CRM, let me see if I can show you that. Here's the usual Acumatica mobile application. Opportunities, cases, all these have been enhanced. I'm going to click on contacts right here. So you can see that I can go in and get a look at contacts. Maybe I'll see, I think there's a Doug in the contacts somewhere. We can open up Doug White and see what he looks like. You'll also notice that there's this ability now to take pictures and add them to different contacts. So maybe I want to be Doug White today. And mid-speech, there I am. So I've gone in, and you can now add a little picture of Doug White there if you need it. Fell on its side. If I go into my application and try and find that guy, you will see the very ugly picture of me, which we will quickly delete from the application. Very good. Tom, over to you with some field services improvements.
Well, thank you, Doug. And go ahead and share my screen. So in field services, we've done a few updates to it. The first one is really an area where we've simplified the screens a bit so that they're much more consistent, but also much easier to use. The information on the screens are grouped together in a much more logical fashion. So it just makes it much easier to be able to show the screens. And of course, the easier we can make the app, it's easier for everyone to take a look and see what's going on with it. But again, much easier, streamlined screens, also a little bit more consistent with what we've been doing with it. Another area that we've improved on is the calendar board. And in the calendar board, this is an area that we did get quite a bit of feedback on as to being able to customize and tailor it. So one of the things that we've done is allowed you to see multiple days or see the entire week at a time. So let's pop over to Acumatica now, and we'll take a look at that calendar board. Now, by default, and we'll be updating the demo data to display things the way I'm displaying them here, is that we'll have the staff members on the left-hand side or horizontally, and the days of the week across the top. Now, from a viewing standpoint, we're now able to see the entire week in one glance with all of the employees that are assigned to this branch location. So you get a much better view of what's going on, not just day to day, but for the entire week. That was a very requested feature. But also, you can see that these appointments are relatively small right now because we're looking at, 7 days. So at the very bottom of the screen, we have a viewer control that as I'm clicking on it and making them larger, we're actually seeing those appointment times expand out from, instead of just being one column for the day, we're now seeing a multiple of columns. So again, much easier to control what's being viewed. And again, even at this level, we are able to see the appointments much better, and we are still able to scroll from day to day to day to again take a look at that week's view. So much more control over this. Again, there are horizontal and vertical controls if you did want the employees across the top and the days of the week across the side as the rows, you can do that. I think, and based on the feedback I've been receiving as I've been showing this product over the years, this seems to be the way most people want to use it. But of course, opinions will vary. And these are configuration options as to, do you want to display it horizontally or vertically? Do you want to display a day at a time? by default, or a week at a time, or a month at a time by default. These are all options that the customer can choose to put in themselves. But I think as a default, especially for demonstration purposes, this might very well be how we'll be configuring it. So let's go back over to my slide deck. And the other area that we got a considerable amount of information on is when we are scheduling employees, needing to know where they happen to be, so that if we had an appointment come in, we wanted to see where all the techs actually were, not just their appointments or their routes they were supposed to be on, but where are they right now this instant. So that location tracking is very important. So let's pop back over to Acumatica. And again, the screen that I find the most helpful is the appointment history map. So here are all of the routes for the day for the different employees. But now we're going to show where the devices happen to be. And now I'll click on my locate button, and we'll see that I am actually in Colorado today in the middle of a blizzard. We can see that here's where all of my appointments are, but here's where I'm actually at. The other important thing to note were two things that I found on this. One, the employees do not have to be logged into the Acumatica app for you to be able to be located. That was the first thing that I tested. The second thing is, based on the different browser settings, that ability to locate and allow that browser to find this app, there are some browser settings to be taken into account. I found the browser settings the easiest in the Firefox browser. I did have some difficulty with the Chrome browser. So again, these are just browser settings. So you may have to work within that browser to be able to get these to actually show up for that location. But again, you're now going to be able to locate the employees or their mobile apps that have been assigned to them within the app. So within the profile of that particular user under devices, we can see there's the phone that we're actually tracking against. So again, very easy to be able to register these devices. Now, the only thing that the user has to do is log in using this login against this instance, and this will automatically become registered for you. So you don't have to do anything other than log in once. It keeps it forever. And again, that will allow us to find everyone just based on that one registration piece on its own. So again, it will allow you to find everyone. And it does work in the snow as well, because right now I can't even see across the street, but the system was able to find me. And really the last thing that I wanted to show you was the ability to do one-click invoicing. And especially with our smaller field service customers, the process used to be fairly tedious to be able to close the appointment, prepare the invoice, generate the invoice, and there were 4 or 5 screens that you'd have to go through to do that. And it did make the system look a little bit more cumbersome. So let's go through and let's go ahead and show you that process and how much more streamlined it is now in 2019 R1. So we'll pop back over here. We'll go back over to my calendar board. And I'm just going to hide that for us a bit and make the 13th a bit bigger for us. And probably one more pop. So let's say we wanted to give Max Baker an appointment for Wednesday. We can see he's booked already. One of the things that we did actually add in 2018 R2 was the ability to create an appointment on the fly just by selecting the time and the employee we wanted that. So this now creates the appointment. It assigns it to the staff member we selected. And we'll go ahead and pick our USA bartending. As you can see, we now have pop-up notes available to us as well in appointments and service orders. We'll go ahead and add a quick line. And from here, we'll go ahead and save it. We'll confirmed it. So in the interest of time, what we'll do is rather than go onto the mobile device, we'll go ahead and start the appointment. We'll now complete the appointment. And when we see the completed appointment, we now get the quick process. Now, again, this is going to create the invoice based on the sales invoice and not just a sales order. So, and we do that in order in case any material or parts were used during the appointment, we would now be able to bring those over as well. So again, there are two options. We can create it in sales orders or sales invoices or AR. If you do create the invoice in AR, no parts are going to be on that invoice. So sales invoice is by far the most popular option because it's a catch-all. It'll have non-stock service items plus material items as well. When we click on the quick process, we're now going to be able to close the appointment automatically, generate the invoice, release it, and email it in one click. The quick processes that we've added over the last year, including into field service, is probably the best example of a workflow that you can define the steps that are going to happen. We can now drill down on that released invoice that's also already been sent to the customer. And for your smaller shops where they don't have a lot, but they need to get these out very quickly, this is going to show them that in one click, they can see the completed appointment, one button, everything goes out. The invoice is already sent to the customer, it's been released, and we're now just waiting for payment. So those have been some of the enhancements that we've done to field service in the areas of the updated calendar board and the flexibility we have with displaying those appointments. We now have that ability to locate employees, even if they're not logged into Acumatica's mobile app, the locate function will still find them. And thirdly, the one-click invoicing. So Doug, let me turn things back over to you.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I think Jessica, and those of you, we're 4 minutes over at this point. We have probably 5 more minutes of material for those of you that want to hang on. Jessica's going to do a quick review of some of the manufacturing features that were added, and then I'm going to show one thing about the mobile toolkit. We should take an additional 5 minutes and then we'll be done.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I'll just do a very abbreviated version of the new manufacturing features. Shameless plug here, I'm actually going to cover some of this on our weekly pre-sales webinar. So for anybody that is not aware or is already an attendee, up on the partner portal, you can register for our pre-sales webinar that we have every Friday. If you go to our calendar of events and just find any Friday, you can see that the webinar link is there to register. So I'll cover these features more in depth there, so I encourage you to join me. But the two features that were really the main pieces of 2019 R1 as far as manufacturing were engineering change control, and then with advanced planning and scheduling, we released the phase 2 of that, which we'll talk about in a moment. So engineering change control, I'm personally very excited, working with manufacturing prospects very often because we got the request for this constantly. And we have always had revision control in Acumatica, but we did not have full-blown engineering change control. And what this allows you to do is actually submit engineering change requests, which can go through an approval process like you see down at the bottom here. That change request then can become an actual change order. So like we've added with projects in the past, we added project change orders. We do now have engineering change orders, and these are for bill of material revisions. So that change order, once the final change order is actually approved as well, so that can go through its own approval process, we can actually create a brand new revision. That new revision can become active and you can go out and use it in your production process. Again, this is huge for those that are in the engineer to order space. You can think about manufacturers that are doing really complex design. Maybe if they're manufacturing some type of engine, you can assume there's not going to be one revision to that bill of materials. They're going to be tweaking it and making a lot of changes, maybe in their CAD system. So this change process with the change control and approvals gives them a lot more control over those revisions now, and how they can even utilize where the approval needs to go to based on the assignment maps that Doug was talking about. So really nice, slick feature. And like I said, I'll cover that a bit more in depth this Friday if you care to join us. And then the other piece of this with manufacturing that was significant is with advanced planning and scheduling, we have released phase 2 of this, which covers machine scheduling. So with phase 1 of advanced planning and scheduling, it got us down to finite capacity scheduling at the work center level. So we do have work center capacity and work center schedules, but now brand new, we have machine capacity and machine schedules as well. If you are working in the demo environment, and it will be in the release notes for manufacturing edition, but there is a new button or a new checkbox that has been added under your production preferences to turn on the machine scheduling. And then on your work center forms, you would just set up your basis for capacity to be the machines if you're interested in using the machine scheduling. This is, again, not something that we can necessarily cover in these few minutes that we have left. It's something I'd like to spend a bit more time on. So I encourage you to join us on the Friday pre-sales webinar, but that is a little bit of an overview on engineering change control and machine scheduling in R1. And Doug, I'll let you close it off with the new mobile enhancements.
Very good. Thank you, Jessica. Last but not least, we have some more mobile enhancements. Specifically, there's a way to manage, easily manage the site map. It used to be XML files that you had to edit, but now it's part of a customization project so that you can move them back and forth between different applications, and you can configure them and save them and reproduce them in other systems if need be. We've also added the ability with business events, an event that would pop up on your mobile device. If you click something that has an applet associated with it, it goes directly into the mobile app. If it doesn't, it can go open up a browser to automatically show inside like Acumatica URL what that would look like. All right, so let's show the mobile again. So we're going to go back to our scanning device. I'm going to log into this different local server I have. So if we go into this guy, remember that when we were doing scanning before, we had a long list of applets, but you'll see that we've greatly simplified it so that you have warehouse management, some purchase orders, purchase receipts, and nothing else. So we can accomplish that with the customization project. So if you'll come into here, we have this one called WMS Mobile. And this one, you'll see it looks like any Acumatica customization project, except there's this mobile application. So you see I've just gone in and done this customize to remove a whole bunch of screens. So if we wanted to, for example, add, let's say we want to add cases back in, we can save that and publish this guy. If let's see if this might take a while. We'll see if it goes quickly. It should go pretty fast. And once we get this started, we can now go back to our mobile app. Let me log off. And I'll log back in. And we now have the ability to add cases. Similarly, you can go in and as part of that, you can add screens and remove them as well. So that's all I want to do. I want to wrap up. Thanks everybody for joining, and have a good day.